So let me go ahead and get started. Professor Lakabamba, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk. Honorable ministers and guests, distinguished guests, I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you this morning about this remarkable initiative by the government of Rwanda to bring Carnegie Mellon University to Kigali to educate and inspire Africa's future innovators and entrepreneurs. We'll see if this, there we are. Carnegie Mellon University is a private research university in the United States. We're relatively small, but we've had a lot of impact. This currently, we're ranked #1 with MIT and Berkeley in computer science. We are the home to 19 actually Nobel laureates who have been students, professors, or have resided for their whole careers at Carnegie Mellon. I wanted to show you a picture of Mr. Mellon, or Mr. Carnegie and Mr. Mellon. The university was founded in 1900 by Andrew Carnegie, actually to train engineers for his steel industry. He was a philanthropist, but before being a philanthropist, he was an industrialist, very well known for what eventually became the United States Steel Company. Andrew Mellon was a banker. He was also the Secretary of the Treasury for the United States for 10 years. They founded separate institutions. The Mellon family founded an institution called the Mellon Institute of Science in Pittsburgh, and they joined in 1967 to become Carnegie Mellon University. I'll come back to these guys. Carnegie Mellon has, for the last several years, expanded into having quite a global presence with programs in a number of countries. Each of these programs have a distinct focus. They're from different parts of the university. Carnegie Mellon University in Rwanda is part of the College of Engineering. Let me tell you quickly what the story is. In 2007 here at Serena, there was a Connect Africa Summit at which there was a decision and a declaration that there should be several centers of excellence established throughout Africa. Rwanda said, we want a center of excellence. We want to establish the center of excellence here in ICT. They approached Carnegie Mellon that year with the proposition that we come to Kigali and we do two things. One, offer our master's degrees with our faculty living here, full-time programs in ICT-related fields. And secondly, to engage with the government in developing the full Center of Excellence. In 2011, a 10-year agreement was signed with the government to do just that. In their interest in making this a regional Center of Excellence, the government immediately declared a 50% tuition scholarship to anyone from the EAC. We currently have students from Kenya, Uganda, and of course from Rwanda. What I'm very pleased to be able to do today is to be able to talk to such a wide swath of people from across Africa and let you know about what's going on and what we're doing and the amazing things that are happening by our opportunity to be here. Currently, we're housed in what's called Telecom House. We have 2 floors of Telecom House, and let me back up again. There we are. But this is a temporary location. There's an African Development Bank project that was established when the Center of Excellence was planned to build a campus for the Center of Excellence to house our program and the other components of the center. In the region where the Kigali ICT Park, the Technopole, is being developed, and Carnegie Mellon University and the Center of Excellence will be the anchor tenant in that center. The tender, in fact, for construction has just finished in terms of bringing the bids in, and so construction is planned to begin very shortly, and the target is for us to move into the new campus in 2016. In the meantime, our location is actually ideal for ICT. Telecom House houses the National Data Center, the control center for the National Fiber Optic Network, and the new ORN, Ole Rwanda Network service, which is doing the 4G LTE network for the country. Their operations center is also in this building. So as I say to people, if I don't have good internet on my campus, you don't. This is the place to be if you want to be connected right now. We're offering 2 degrees, a Master of Science in Information Technology and a Master of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering degree. These are the 2 degrees in our agreement that we will be offering for the next 10 years. It's only postgraduate. They're 2 degrees focusing specifically on ICT. We had our first intake of students in August 2012 for the Master of Science in Information Technology, and we just had our first intake for the students in Electrical and Computer Engineering this past August. The MSIT is a 2-year program. We graduated our first class this past year, and the MSIT program also includes internships, both of the programs, internships. We work very hard to establish for our students what we call US-style internships. They work for the period from mid-May to mid-August. Primarily, we found these internships with multinationals, quite frankly, because multinationals understand what we mean by an internship. The students are paid, they're given a very serious technical assignment, and they're given an exposure to work closely with companies. And we've been very pleased with the opportunities we've had with companies, and they've been very excited to have our students. I want to talk a little bit about innovation. It's the topic of the next 2 or 3 days, and it has a lot to do with what our program is all about. Improve something with a new idea or procedure, or produce a product using a new and better way. One reason I thoroughly enjoy being at Carnegie Mellon University, and I've been there for more than 30 years, is because I have been surrounded by inspiring innovators. This slide just shows a few. These are things that, some of these things are used millions of times a day. The inventor and designer of the Java programming language, the founders of artificial intelligence with the first logic program that actually proved theorems, major companies, the first major commercial search engine, Lycos, and even very important things that we all use, hashtags. It's a place just brimming with innovation and innovative people. I want to tell you about one that I really find fascinating because it is the epitome of the concept of what we just defined as innovation. I know this is a little fuzzy, but I hope most of you recognize this. You've tried to do something on the internet, and before it lets you go further, it shows you some jumbled letters and says, type them in. And we all know what that's for. It wants to make sure that a real human being is trying to buy something or get into their website, right? That was CAPTCHA. I want to tell you about the innovation. There's 2 words here. Some of you have maybe encountered this. You go and instead of having to type 1 word, you have to type 2 words. Maybe some of you know why. The innovation, I'm just going to tell you who came up with this innovation. One of my colleagues, Louis Van Aan. He's a pioneer in crowdsourcing and an amazing person to be around. Let me tell you his idea. He said, you know, we're trying to digitize books. That's a major effort right now. So computers are just scanning printed pages of old books that were never on computers and converting them into computer-readable text. But every once in a while, that ink is a little fuzzy. It's an old book, and the computer can't figure it out or gets it wrong. So he had a great idea. In fact, I think the word great there is from this idea. He said, you know what? I've got these people typing in words, looking and figuring out what the words are, and they're typing them in. So why don't we have them do 2 words? The first one is to find out if they're really a human being. The second one is to tell me what that word is that the computer couldn't figure out. That's crowdsourcing. Human beings do an excellent job at recognizing things that aren't printed quite right. And now, you're doing a service to the OCR, optical computer recognition community, by taking these words the computer had trouble with and telling the computer what those words were. I actually had, just yesterday morning, I had an experience with this. On my Kindle, I was reading a book that was published sometime in the 60s, and in the middle of a sentence, there was the number 110. And it didn't make sense at all to suddenly have that number there, and I figured out the word that did make sense was the word no. And clearly what happened was the computer OCR came to the letter N, and the ink must have been missing connecting the two legs, and it said, oh, that's the number 110. Human could have probably figured that out. This was his idea. It was such a good idea that, have we lost our slides? I don't know why okay. His company was acquired by Google in September 2009, and you can't read this, but it says, digitizing books one word at a time. So businesses that are in the business of digitizing books can subscribe to this through Google, and their computers can send words to it and get the information back. That's crowdsourcing. That's real innovation. That's remarkable innovation. In fact, it's an example of something in his book called Where Ideas Come From by Steve Johnson, of exaptation, where you take something that was developed to be used for one thing and you come up with a clever way to use it for something entirely different. I'm surrounded by inspiring innovators. In our program, we're interested in inspiring innovators. I want to say a little to you about right now. I want to tell you some things that I tell our students to inspire them and to help them understand what it takes to prepare to become an innovator. All of us in this room are very interested in education. We're interested in how do we get our young people to understand how they can become innovative and develop exciting opportunities and careers throughout their life. I'm going to draw on a couple things out of a book that came out several years ago by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And many of you, I'm sure, have read this book. He talks about what are the things that create these people who just stand out. They stand far ahead of the pack. They're outliers. What are those things? One of the most famous things that he talks about is the 10,000-hour rule. He refers to a study that was done at a famous music school to analyze what's the difference. All the students in that school are highly talented because they got in. From all indications, they're very similar. But when they finish, some of them go on to stellar careers. They're outliers. And the rest go on to good careers, but they're not the stellar careers. What's the difference? What they found was the primary difference was the people that became the outliers, the stellar performers, probably spent about 10,000 hours preparing for their career while they were in school. 10,000 hours of practice. And the others, maybe 5,000, 4,000. And he started looking at this across several areas and discovered in a lot of endeavors, this almost became a magic number. It took about 10,000 hours to become that person that just far exceeds everybody else. So you've got this minimum that you got to be bright, you've got to be talented, but that doesn't explain the whole thing. And this carries over into technology. When I show this picture to the students, they all know who he is. And I'm sure all of you know who he is, Bill Gates. And all of our students know this about Bill Gates. He dropped out of Harvard, right? So clearly, to become an amazing innovator in IT and a billionaire, you don't need really to go to school. You can drop out of Harvard and do that. So he must have just been an amazingly brilliant person, and that's all it took. So that's the myth. In Outliers, he tells the story that's behind that myth. Bill Gates, in 1968, when he was just an early teenager, he was going to a high school where the parents invested in a teletype machine, that was connected to a mainframe computer. And he and a few of his colleagues, including Paul Allen, just got hooked on programming. They started writing computer programs on that teletype. They ate up all the time their parents could afford. Then they discovered at University of Washington there was a computing center where they could go, and if they went at nighttime, they could stay all night and write computer programs, and nobody would bother them. They went on and on. They ate, drank, slept, writing computer programs. In fact, they became so good that when they were seniors in high school, they were hired by TRW, a major defense contractor, to do some software development for them, to fix some systems, actually. So by the time Bill Gates got to Harvard, he had put in, by any account, more than his 10,000 hours. So he was a bright guy, but it wasn't just he was a bright guy. He had under his belt probably more programming experience. You could probably maybe count on one hand the number of people that had as much programming experience at that age as he had. So he dropped out of Harvard, and the rest is history. So I talked to our students about this. What does it take to become an innovator? You need to become experts. You need to understand expertise is not just, oh, I'm a bright kid. Expertise is you get so caught up in the passion of what you're doing that you just excel in the amount of time and investment that you put into that passion. You have to become an expert. What's another key? I tell our students, we want you to solve real problems. Really dig into the problem side. Technology is fascinating, and there's always the engineers and computer scientists and people that are so fascinated with technology. They're always told that, yeah, you've got a hammer looking for a nail. So you've got to immerse yourself in problems and solve problems. This, of course, is a problem solution that has come out of Africa and everybody knows about now, mobile money. And you know the story of mobile money. Where did it come from? At least the story I read, which was a good one, is that students got used to buying drinks at parties by exchanging airtime. And then they said, well, wait a minute, airtime isn't very liquid. Why don't we just start exchanging money? And I recently read that they claim 43% of the GDP of Kenya flows through mobile money. There was a problem. How do I get money back and forth? Somebody started becoming innovative and came up with a solution. Let me show you another example that, just from my own involvement here in the research that we're developing in our programs, I'm focusing on the energy sector. And last year, one of my colleagues, another one of our professors, and we wrote a paper for the U.S. National Science Foundation, and the title was, Building a Truly Smart Grid, What Can We Do When There Is No Legacy System? Smart grid, everybody's talking about it. I've done research, I've written papers, there are hundreds of papers being written about it. You know the problem with the smart grid in the developed world? The whole problem and the thing that you end up spending all your time on is trying to somehow get your smart idea into this enormous, almost century-old, maybe more, legacy system. That's what the smart grid problem is in the developed world. In the developing world, we can ask a completely different question. We can say, well, what should the smart grid really be? Should it be, let's import someone's grandmother's power system from Europe and install it in Africa? Or are there maybe some opportunities to do something different? Well, I have a colleague at Carnegie Mellon, Anthony Rowe, who works on wireless sensor technology. And this picture, and you can't see it very well, is taken from some of his research. He's created a smart grid in Haiti. It's a completely off-grid microgrid. And it's the standard idea. In fact, in this case, you've got cell towers all over that have generators, and there's a little extra power there. Why not connect it up to the local people? But he said, yeah, but why not also make it smart? So these every one of the 52 buildings in this community. They have a very smart meter. It's communicating through a wireless network grid, and it's doing everything that people wish smart grids could do. It's doing demand response. It's managing the demand so that the collective demand never exceeds what they can take from the generators. It's taking care of the user being able to manage when they want power. It's taking care of the billing so that everybody is getting what they want in terms of making it sustainable economically. It's a smart grid, and it's sitting in the middle of Haiti. Now, I'll say a little bit more about this and the opportunities in Africa, but let me just say this. There's a notion that I hear all the time from the developed world, which is, okay, we'll do these, in the energy area, we'll do these off-grid microgrids, we'll do these DC grids that give light and charge phones, and that's a stopgap until these folks can get a real power system. And I began to think that this maybe is something probably similar was thought when people here were using satellite telephones, and people were thinking, yeah, those poor people, you know, this is a stopgap until we can finally lay some landlines and get a real phone system in here. You'll never have landlines here. You don't need them, right? This is the opportunity for innovation in Africa. You get to start with technology where it is right now, look at the problem, and you say, well, I don't have a legacy system to worry about. Let's think about what's possible. Let's be innovative. So inspiring innovators, I tell my students they have to become experts. They should look at real problems and just get excited about all the possibilities they have. And then there's one other interesting thing out of Gladwell's book, a key, and that is be born at the right time. Let me give you two examples. Andrew Carnegie. In 2008, Wikipedia published a list that had been compiled of the 75 most wealthy people in history. Somebody decided to try to analyze wealth of people throughout history and estimate their wealth relative to the wealth at the time and analyze what's the pecking order. Who were the richest people in history? Andrew Carnegie was number 2 in all time. John D. Rockefeller beat him. Andrew Mellon was number 6 on that list. Now, here's the amazing thing. Gladwell looked at that list and looked at when these people were born. 20% of the people on the list of all-time wealthy people in history were born in one decade, the 1830s, including Andrew Carnegie. Staggering, isn't it? Be born at the right time. Why? That is the time when they reached the age of productivity, mid and later 1800s, when North America exploded. North America had boundless development, and the opportunity to be innovative and to make money exceeded anything that had ever happened in history, and quite frankly, ever since has happened. Maybe it's happening in China, who knows? But isn't that amazing? 20% of these 75 people were born in one decade. Bill Gates, he goes on and looks at technology. This is interesting. He was born in 1955, and he gives the list of the people that are household names in the explosion of the personal computer and computing when they were born. An amazing number of them were born in 1954 and 1955. Eric Schmidt of Google, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they were all born in 1955. Why was that a magic time to be born? Well, they were just at that sweet spot. When the personal computer came out, they were just at that perfect age where you're young enough, you don't have all these obligations, you can just sit there and dive in and make something of it, but you're old enough to have put in your 10,000 hours. So I tell my students, you know, in my opinion, You've been born at the right time. You can't see the details of this, but this is showing the median ages of countries around the world. And the green is median age teens and early 20s, sub-Saharan Africa. Now, you all know the statistics much better than I do, but Africa has the potential to have absolutely unprecedented innovation, development, economic growth that could possibly eclipse what happened in the 1800s in North America. And our students, our young people, the people that we want to educate, they've been born at the right time. Very exciting. I tell our students, I've given you 3 points. You need to become an expert, and we can help you with that. And believe me, our program does everything it can to help them with their 10,000 hours. They need to focus on real problems, and we try to have a very hands-on program where they're working on problems, working with companies, working on projects that are focusing on what's happening right now in Africa. But the good news for them is they've already done maybe the most important thing already. They were born at the right time. So why is Carnegie Mellon in Africa? I'll tell you, I think we know now better than we do when we made the decision to accept the invitation from Rwanda. And that is, as it's said many, many times, Africa is the last economic frontier. Not just the last economic frontier, it's a frontier for absolutely unfettered opportunities for innovation, for creating new business models, for creating impact that is not just going to be something in Africa, it's going to be something that will get exported. Let me tell you one story. In December, our first December here, 2012, I got an email from John Morris, who is the professor of computer science in Pittsburgh, our main campus, who founded our Silicon Valley campus. And Jim Morris, I'm sorry. And this was the email. He said, Bruce, are you going to have a mobile apps course next semester? And I sent a note back, and I said, yes. And he said, good. He said, I have my mobile apps course that I always teach. I want them to do their mobile apps course with the students in Africa because I want them to find out what mobile apps are really about. And that's exactly what happened. They teamed up. We have a very good telecommunication systems. Lesson number 1 was our students told the students back in the United States what's going on with mobile apps in Africa. And throughout the semester, they worked together on projects. They evaluated each other's projects. And we've begun to have more and more of that. We're sending 2 courses right now, one to the Silicon Valley campus, one to Pittsburgh from here. CMU has discovered this is an exciting opportunity for us to do what we do, which is educate and innovate in research, but in a brand new place where it's brand new opportunities. We are extremely excited by this. The past and the future. This is a sign that says Save Africa. I experienced 2 kinds of expats here. I meet many people who come here and I say, why are you here? I'm here to help. And that's great. They're doing some wonderful things. And then I meet the expats. You say, why are you here? And they get excited. I'm here because this is what I like to do, and I found out this is the best place for me to be doing it right now. They're here for opportunity. That is the future. And it excites me. You know, I reflected on that. I've been to Silicon Valley many times, and I've never heard anybody at Silicon Valley tell me they came to Silicon Valley to help. And the opportunities now, people are waking up to it. You know about it. Companies are starting to come. And we, as educators in Africa, have the opportunity to help our youth see what the future's all about, and that it really is about opportunity. This is from our graduation. happened here in July, just this past July. They're standing right outside here, tossing their caps in the air. We graduated 22 students from our first graduating class in our Masters of Information Technology program. As you can imagine, this was enormously satisfying for everyone involved. I've been a professor more than 30 years. Like all professors, I like to think that my papers and my research are all going to have lasting effect and that everybody's paying attention to them. But when we're honest with ourselves, we know the real impact we have is through our students. That's what's going to last. That's what's going to absolutely have a lasting and changing effect in the world. And when my friends in the States ask me, what in the world are you doing? You went over to Rwanda. You're going to get Ebola. You know, let me tell you a fact. I just sent a note to somebody in Pittsburgh. We are as close to the closest case of Ebola for us is the distance of Pittsburgh to Quito, Ecuador. Anyway, they don't know about the size of Africa. But they wonder why I did it. And, you know, one of the thoughts that made me come was just simply, you know, graduating another Carnegie Mellon graduate, the incremental impact, the marginal effect of graduating another Carnegie Mellon University graduate in information technology or electrical and computer engineering, the impact that's going to have here is multiple times graduating one more master's student in the United States, as important as that is. So here's my message to you. Brilliant minds wanted. I have become convinced we're doing the right thing here. Students can come to Kigali, get the same degree that we offer in the United States, but they get to do it here. And my confidence that doing it here is a good idea, do their master's degree here, has been reconfirmed and strengthened for the whole 3 years I've been here. Let me just give you one reason why I think it's an excellent idea. Our first graduating class, 4 companies have been started by our students. They built their network. They worked with companies here. They're in Africa. They just graduated. Go to the United States, go to Europe, get your degree, and now come back here. You're going to have a little bit of startup time to get much of anything done. So being and doing your degree here, I think, is an absolutely superb idea. Now, can I get back to my slides? One more? There. So my message to you is, we would love to have students from your country. Now, we're a private U.S. university. Our tuition is extremely expensive. But guess what? It's the same tuition that you would pay if you shipped somebody over to the United States. But part of our agreement with the government of Rwanda is every dime of tuition goes to the costs of this program. So we are really anxious to increase the diversity of students, to see brilliant minds from across Africa coming to our program. We hope you spread the word. We hope you see your way to supporting us. And that's just simply not going to let me say thank you. Merci, obrigado, and thank you. Now, I ended exactly at 10:30, but I'd be happy if anybody has any questions or even has any questions for the minister, because we are a program of the government of Rwanda. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask? About Carnegie Mellon, about the program, about... Yes. You know what? She has a microphone. Okay.
Here you go.
Hi, my name is Abubakar Kulubali. I'm the ICT advisor for the Minister of National Education and Technical Training of the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. And I'm really very impressed by this program run by the Rwandan government. And I'd like to know what are the opportunities for students in Côte d'Ivoire that want to attend this program here? What do we have to do to take advantage of this opportunity? Thank you.
So, first of all, of course, our program is English. And my students have told me it's even the hard English, it's American English from some of the professors. So, obviously, students for our program need to be have English skills. But beyond that, students, of course, need to apply, and then they need the resources for tuition. And I'll tell you, we're a private U.S. university. Tuition is $41,000. It's this semester $20,500 a semester, so it's very expensive. And so we are working very hard on developing scholarship opportunities. We have a new scholarship fund. In fact, we 2 students are now fully supported out of scholarships. But what we need to do is, for students from Cote d'Ivoire or from anywhere, is we need to work together, and even with the governor of Rwanda, to help address the financial issue. Now, people keep telling me there are people in Africa that can afford tuition, but I think with the ministries and with ICT and with the different countries, I think that Professor Lakabamba would be very happy to engage in discussions. Right now, the government has extended a 50% tuition scholarship to East African community. I think what we should do is 2 things. Let students know about the opportunity and get in dialogue about how we can make it happen if there are some key students that could take advantage of this.
Thank you so much. My name is Harriet Ntabazi. I'm a member of parliament from Uganda and the vice chair of women parliamentarians in Uganda. Member of ICT committee again in Uganda. I have one simple question. I appreciate the efforts you're putting in and the efforts you put in Rwanda. I don't know whether you have a rollout plan for other countries, or maybe in a way of opening branches, or something, because the tuition is a bit higher, and then the cost of living when you're outside your country is a bit higher. Do you have a rollout plan to open up branches in other countries?
The answer is no, we don't right now. We're here because of the invitation from the governor of Rwanda, and we looked at opportunities throughout the continent. But I'll say this, we have full-time Carnegie Mellon University faculty here offering the program. It's very expensive, and to get a critical mass of faculty, students, courses, and everything in a single location takes a lot of work. So right now there are not plans to roll out branch programs, certainly not at this point where we're only into our 3rd year. So, excuse me, there's a question right here.
Okay, thanks. Mine was a short one. My name is Tapelo Wakadikotla from the Republic of South Africa, and I deal with ICT and international relations. As a follow-up to the question the colleague asked, I was just checking if your education, your teaching, is it on a virtual platform? Is it an online learning type of a qualification? Because if you target, the entire Africa, I'm sure that platform can also come in handy. Thank you.
Right now, the program is not an online program. It's being taught by faculty. We offer a sufficient number of courses here in Kigali that students can get their entire degree with classes here. So we have faculty, teaching assistants, laboratories, everything, and quite frankly, it's a traditional education setting. Our students have access to many courses that are available from Pittsburgh and our Silicon Valley campus through distance learning technology. So they do take advantage of courses that are available, and as I mentioned, we're actually offering some courses back to them. But that is the model we're working with right now. But this is a very interesting question because we all know technology is changing the way one can deliver courses, and this is something that we would be interested in looking at. Are there ways to make our courses accessible so students could, for example, start the program in their home country? But Carnegie Mellon is, as the engineering college, is quite frankly committed to residential education as opposed to strictly online education. So it's a policy of the university. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name's Malama Mwimba from Zambia, Deputy Minister. I have two simple questions. Number one, you said you were invited by Rwandan government. I want to find out whether, if any other African countries can invite you, whether you can consider that, taking into consideration that it's in Africa where we need a lot of such institutions. That's number one. Number two, I want to find out when you start offering first degrees. Thank you.
So you were asking, the second one was bachelor's degrees? No, we're going to, at least in what we're doing here, we will focus exclusively on postgraduate degrees. And I believe we'll probably stay that way for two reasons. One is we're very interested in the capacity building and the development of the universities that you already have here. And those are the universities that are feeding us. So we have zero interest in competing, but a more practical fact is cranking up a full undergraduate program would be an enormous undertaking, far beyond the resources that we have right now. To your first question, which is related to this question, are we thinking about going other places? I was not involved until 2010 in our program, so I wasn't involved in the initial discussions with the government of Rwanda. As you can imagine, the university has to very seriously try to evaluate the opportunity costs of anything it undertakes. And it's an enormous effort to put together what we've done with the government of Rwanda. So we would be happy to talk. Carnegie Mellon's a very innovative place. It's a private university. It can do whatever it wants, and they love new ideas and exciting opportunities. So we would be happy to talk with anyone, but I can say that we can only go into it if it really looks like an opportunity that's going to be sustainable and you know that we could really bear, because it's a lot of opportunity cost to try to undertake something like this. So let's see, there's a question right here, so I'm going to give him the mic.
Thank you very much. My name is Jacob Midupi, and I'm from South Africa, and I'm a consultant. My question is a very, a short one. One of your slides had indicated that you guys are offering a master's program. And I'm aware that one of the, the greatest needs in the continent are PhD programs as well. Are there any plans to go, beyond your masters and, start offering PhDs as well?
Very good question, because it's something we've been talking about. We just had a meeting 2 weeks ago. We invited faculty from several regional universities, and the whole focus was on graduate education and research, and a lot of it was a discussion about PhD programs. And let me just tell you our current thinking, and this isn't a policy of the university, this is just from the discussions we've been having. Our tuition is prohibitive, so even at the PhD level. What we are thinking would be a very intriguing thing for us to do would be to work in creating opportunities for collaborations where students who are pursuing PhDs in institutions in Africa, where we can participate in collaborations as co-advising, defining projects and that kind of thing. So my faculty, they want to do research. It's very hard to do research unless you have PhD students. And this is an idea we've actually been thinking about. Are there ways we could partner with institutions, partner with other people, where we get PhD students, maybe even have a research center where visiting faculty and PhD students come together, and the degree granting institution doesn't bear this enormous burden of CMU tuition. So that's our current thinking. But in the current program, it's a master's program, there's not a plan in our program to offer Carnegie Mellon PhDs.
Thank you very much. My name is Lucky Mwahi. I work for the Ministry of Education in Botswana. We've been trying to build capacity locally by inviting partnerships from institutions abroad. There's a lot of interest for partnership with existing institutions, but we also encourage them to even set up on their own. But there's reluctance when it comes to programs such as engineering, that because of the level of investment that they have to put in if they were to set up on their own. And I was just wondering what kind of incentives you had with the government of Rwanda to be able to set up a program like engineering, which I assume, well, clearly there are lots of inputs and investment. Thank you.
This program is an amazingly generous and, quite frankly, audacious step by the government of Rwanda. They are providing the facilities and underwriting the development of the campus and also even laboratory facilities. But let me say, one good thing about ICT is across the engineering disciplines, it may be one of the less expensive ones to underwrite. So IT is reasonably priced. We have a wonderful lab. We have put together a lab that has some the basic instrumentation and everything, and some of that is costly. But in this case, the government provided the incentive of providing the facilities and underwriting the cost of the development. And that, of course, and tuition, of course, any tuition we receive comes to help with that cost. But you're right, creating programs across the board in engineering with the things you need for laboratories and everything, it's a very, very expensive proposition. So IT happens to be one where you can do some amazing things, not so expensively. So. Okay, you know, I think we'll do one more from the minister, of course. Here, you know, I can give her my microphone, and then I think maybe we'll close because of time. So.
My name is Jessica Alupo, Minister of Education and Sports, Uganda. First of all, to thank you for the good work you are doing here in Rwanda in the name of Carnegie Mellon University, which I have visited and had an exchange with the staff there. I would like to ask you one question. For instance, that in Uganda we have very vibrant universities which like collaborating with other universities over the world. Now, my question is that Carnegie Mellon would be a very good institution to collaborate with our universities back home. What can I do as a sector minister to enhance the collaboration between your university and our universities back home? Thank you.
Very timely question. This meeting that I just referred to that we had a couple of weeks ago, the Dean Josephine from Makerere was at that meeting to talk about this very thing. How can we regionally interact and engage in collaborations, and what kinds of things could we be doing? So that's, you know, it's from the perspective of the ministry, I'm glad to hear that you're interested and supportive of that, of trying to help nurture the collaborations. You know, some of the things are just simply making it clear that this is something that's encouraged, obviously, and then I think speaking with, as we engage with Makerere, speaking with the ministry and talking about what can be done, let me tell you one very specific thing and one reason we really want to collaborate with regional universities. We're a U.S. university. Doing research at Carnegie Mellon University is a contract with an organization in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA. On top of that, U.S. funding for doing research abroad, not just in Africa, but research abroad in general, is surprisingly limited. Lots of aid funding, but the sources of serious funding for work in Africa, of which there are some enormously wonderful sources, are not in the United States. They're in Europe. There's some money flowing in from Asia. We would love to be in collaborations where we can be with institutions that can take the lead on forming these initiatives with the organizations that they naturally work with, and we would be delighted to participate in those kinds of projects with them. So that's one thing that, and the ministry obviously can help a lot with that. So I think we'll close the questioning, and I'll let Professor go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bruce. I just want to reiterate what Bruce said. The government of Rwanda offered to pay 50% of the fees to Carnegie Mellon University for any student coming from East Africa. And this has been going on for quite some time. Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, Tanzania, they thus standing offer any student who comes from those countries, the government of Rwanda will pay 50%. Those people have honored to pay 50% on. Okay, please keep it in mind. Otherwise, I'd like to thank Bruce. I don't know, somebody want to say something finally? No? Yeah?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm the Deputy Minister of Telecoms. No, I didn't want to talk. I'm the Deputy Minister of Telecoms and Postal Services from South Africa. I was just following the debate, thinking that all over the world, specialized institutions of learning, focusing on technology, sometimes it works better if it's located in a strategic place, but allowing students across the region to benefit from it, because by its very nature, it's unique. Its uniqueness is about what it allows in terms of innovation. You know, earlier on we had a discussion around the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In Europe, there's a Delft University of Technology. So much as our individual countries will all be having bits and pieces in engineering-related subjects, in computer science and technology, it might be good to see this as a specialized hub whereby people bringing other degrees could be allowed even for 6 months, for a year. But also, I thought we need to look not only on government budgets. What about the private sector? I mean, really, if you look at the ICT sector, it's migrating. It's, in terms of our GDPs, it's on the top of the range. So there could be possibilities of looking at that as well, as to how do we all make sure that students within the continent benefit from this hub, which has been graciously established by the government of Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What she said, the last point she made, what about the private sector? It's really amazing that if you look at all the private sector firms, they take the best students because they pay better. They take the most brilliant. But how much do they contribute? It's a problem. And I think the private sector needs to contribute for their staff. So it is something I think we need to talk about. Thank you so much. John, take over.